US has a $650 million ship designed not to fight, but to dominate any war in the Pacific without firing a shot. While China invests billions in missiles and bases, one American vessel is quietly rewriting the rules of naval warfare, and it's already out there. Fully operational, the Indo-Pacific isn't just a region, it's the arena where future global power will be decided. With over half the world's population, critical shipping lanes, and rich reserves of energy and minerals, it holds unparalleled strategic value. But beyond its economic might lies a growing tension, one that threatens to spill into direct military confrontation. China has aggressively asserted its claims over vast portions of the South China Sea, ignoring international rulings and building artificial islands armed with missile systems. Meanwhile, Taiwan remains a flashpoint, with Beijing openly preparing for what it calls reunification by force if necessary. In this volatile landscape, the question isn't if conflict might erupt, but when. The United States, recognizing the gravity of this shift, has been reinforcing its military presence in the region. Yet geography is not on its side. Sprawling oceans and vast distances challenge traditional logistics. That's why platforms like the USS Lewis B aren't just innovative, they're essential for bridging the gap between distant commands and frontline readiness. China has rewritten the rules of engagement, not with open warfare, but with strategic economic, political, and military encroachment. Its Belt and Road Initiative extends influence through infrastructure deals, while new security pacts with Pacific nations signal an intent to station military assets dangerously close to US territories. In response, the US faces a logistical conundrum. Bases in Japan, South Korea, and Guam are valuable, but vulnerable. Mainland bases offer power, but not proximity. And as China tightens diplomatic ties and gains port access across the Pacific, the US risks being boxed out of a region it once dominated. Enter the US Navy's countermove: agile, mobile, self-sustaining platforms like the USS Lewis B. Designed to project force without the need for traditional bases, the Puller represents a quiet but powerful shift in American naval doctrine, one that might redefine how wars are fought and won at sea. Kiribati might look like just another remote island chain, but its significance is growing fast. Once the site of a key US airfield during World War II, it's now at the center of a modern strategic tug of war. China's interest in reviving and controlling that very same airfield isn't just about tourism, it's about proximity. Just 1,900 miles from Hawaii, Kiribati's location could offer China a launch pad for intelligence gathering or even military staging. The island's government insists on peaceful intentions, but history shows that influence rarely stops at economic investment. For the US, the situation in Kiribati is a cautionary tale. It's a stark reminder that influence once lost is hard to regain. That's why the ability to operate without fixed land bases, using sea-based platforms like the USS Lewis B. isn't just strategic, it's a necessity. During World War II, the US poured massive resources into the South Pacific, establishing airfields, naval bases, and supply lines across tiny islands to defeat Japan. Kiribati was a cornerstone of that effort, a refueling and surveillance hub that helped turn the tide of the war. But after the war, US interest faded, and with the Cold War pivot to Europe, much of the Pacific infrastructure was left to decay. Over time, this created a vacuum, one that China has been eager to fill. Its goal? Reclaim forgotten strategic points and quietly build a new network of influence. The USS Lewis B. symbolizes the US response to this creeping expansion. It brings back the mobility and reach that once made the US dominant in the Pacific, only now with modern capabilities like drone deployment, real-time data fusion, and rapid helicopter operations, all from a floating base that can go where it's needed most. While global eyes focused on the Middle East or Eastern Europe, China was slowly embedding itself into the Pacific. It offered loans, built roads and ports, and gained access to infrastructure that could one day serve military goals. Countries like the Solomon Islands and Nauru began switching diplomatic allegiance from Taiwan to China. These seemingly small shifts have massive strategic consequences. Each alliance lost weakens the US diplomatic foothold and strengthens China's ability to operate freely. And with growing anti-American sentiment in certain Pacific nations, even basic logistics, like refueling ships, have become contentious. This is where the USS Lewis B. role becomes even more crucial. In a region where airstrips and ports may no longer be friendly, the Puller offers independence. It can refuel ships, launch helicopters, and serve as a command post, all without touching land. It's not just a ship, it's a statement. The US is not giving up the Pacific without a fight. The United States maintains hundreds of military bases across the Indo-Pacific, but many are relics of another era, designed for Cold War confrontations, not today's fast-moving hybrid threats. Bases in Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines still matter, but they face aging infrastructure, political resistance, and the logistical limitations of land-based warfare. Meanwhile, China is modernizing and expanding its own regional footprint, entering into security pacts, building artificial islands, and leveraging influence to block US naval access. In 2022 and 2023, US Coast Guard vessels were denied refueling in Pacific ports, clear evidence of shifting allegiances and shrinking operational space. This shifting terrain is precisely why the USS Lewis B Puller was designed. It's a response to a world where permanent bases are vulnerable or politically inaccessible. With its ability to support sustained operations at sea, far from friendly shores, the Puller doesn't just augment the base network, it redefines what presence means in the 21st century. The Pacific Ocean is vast, covering 1/3 of the Earth's surface. Unlike Europe, where interconnected military bases make deployment relatively fast, the Indo-Pacific is a logistical black hole. The sheer distance between US assets and potential conflict zones stretches supply chains to their limits. China, on the other hand, enjoys proximity and an expanding network of regional partners. That gives it a decisive edge in mobility, logistics, and rapid escalation, especially near flashpoints like Taiwan. For the US, maintaining readiness requires overcoming this tyranny of distance, a challenge no traditional base network alone can solve. That's where the USS Lewis B Puller breaks the mold. By functioning as a mobile, sea-based logistics and command hub, the Puller removes distance from the equation. It enables US forces to operate closer to the action, for longer, without needing land access. In a region where geography favors the adversary, the Puller flips the script. Imagine war breaks out in the Indo-Pacific overnight. Traditional US supply chains, built around fixed ports and sprawling air bases, would be immediately vulnerable to missile strikes, cyber attacks, and political barriers. China could isolate American forces simply by denying access to key islands and infrastructure. The US would be forced to rely on a handful of overstretched bases, most thousands of miles from the conflict. Maritime resupply becomes risky, aerial transport limited. The costs, in time, lives, and resources, would spike dramatically unless new logistical platforms step in. That's where the USS Lewis B Puller becomes indispensable. It doesn't need a port, it doesn't need friendly territory. It can operate autonomously, deliver supplies, launch drones, and support operations from sea. In a sudden conflict, it could mean the difference between early collapse and sustained resilience. It might look like a floating garage, but the USS Lewis B Puller is one of the most strategic naval assets in the US fleet. Originally built on the hull of an oil tanker, its low profile hides an immense operational punch, capable of supporting helicopters, special forces, drones, and command operations across any maritime theater. What makes it revolutionary is not its firepower, but its versatility. It's not just a support vessel, it's a mobile base that fills in the gaps traditional ships and land installations can't. And in the Pacific, those gaps are vast. The Puller bridges the logistical divide with agility and autonomy. With over 82,000 square feet of mission deck space, state-of-the-art command facilities, and the ability to launch both manned and unmanned aircraft, the Puller is the backbone of future Pacific operations. In a naval chessboard crowded with carriers and destroyers, this ship is the queen, capable of covering the board in one move. Traditional naval vessels are built for combat, land bases are static hubs for logistics and command, but the USS Lewis B Puller sits at the intersection of both, introducing a hybrid concept, the expeditionary sea base. It's a category unto itself, created for a specific strategic gap in US military posture. Too valuable to risk in direct combat, yet too essential to keep in the rear, the Puller supports frontline operations while maintaining safe distance. It's designed for asymmetric warfare, mine clearing, special ops, logistics, missions that don't grab headlines but win wars. And in the Indo-Pacific, where static assets can be wiped out in a single strike, the Pullar's mobility is its superpower. It can reposition, adapt, and support missions with a speed and flexibility unmatched by any land base. It's not a symbol of power, it's a delivery system for it. Step inside the USS Lewis B Puller and you're not just entering a ship, you're stepping into a floating operations hub. Its massive deck spans the size of a football field, allowing for simultaneous landing and takeoff of helicopters like the CH-53 Super Stallion and MV-22 Osprey. It's not a flight deck, it's an air mobility gateway. But what really sets it apart is what lies beneath. The Pullar's mission deck provides over 82,000 square feet of space to store, maintain, and deploy equipment, including boats, drones, and even containerized mission modules. It's essentially a blank canvas, capable of transforming for any task. This modularity is critical in an evolving theater like the Indo-Pacific. Adaptability equals survival, whether it's supporting Navy SEALs, serving as a launch pad for drones, or hosting humanitarian missions. The Puller doesn't need to return to port. It reshapes itself at sea. While aircraft carriers dominate the headlines, the Puller delivers where stealth and speed matter most. Its deck supports multiple helicopters and vertical lift operations simultaneously. From troop insertion to medical evacuations and logistical airlifts, the Puller makes things happen where no runway exists. Beyond rotary wing aircraft, the Puller can launch and recover unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs like the In Situ Scan Eagle and Aerosonde. These drones extend intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance far beyond the horizon, critical in a region where early warning is everything. What makes this setup even more revolutionary is the ability to operate UAV swarms from a single floating platform. Think about that, a ship that doesn't just host aircraft, it becomes a persistent eye in the sky, capable of gathering and distributing real-time battlefield data across thousands of miles. The USS Lewis B Puller doesn't just transport people and hardware, it processes intelligence, guides operations, and controls missions across an entire region. With over 2 megawatts of spare energy and advanced data systems, it can operate as a fully functional command post anywhere, anytime. Its nerve center can coordinate special ops, relay targeting data, and monitor threats while remaining mobile. In an age of cyber warfare and electronic surveillance, this mobility becomes a security asset. A floating command center is much harder to track, intercept, or sabotage than a land-based facility. This level of connectivity transforms the Puller from a support ship into a digital warfighting node. It connects air, land, sea, and cyber domains into one seamless command chain. In the Pacific, where gaps in communication can mean disaster, the Puller makes sure those gaps never appear. You can't win a war without fuel, and the Puller brings it in spades. With the ability to store over 11 million gallons of cargo, it can supply fuel to warships and aircraft carriers at sea, eliminating the need for risky port visits or vulnerable supply chains. To put that into perspective, the USS America, an amphibious assault ship, carries only about 1 million gallons. Even a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier maxes out at 3.5 million gallons. The Puller's capacity is a logistics dream, making it the backbone of sustained operations in remote or contested waters. But it's not just about bulk, it's about delivery. The Puller can transfer supplies by helicopter, boat, or underway replenishment. Whether it's diesel fuel, aviation gas, food, or critical spare parts, it keeps frontline forces moving, flying, and fighting without skipping a beat. Water may not be as exciting as missiles or helicopters, but try waging war without it. The Pullar's onboard desalination systems ensure troops in the field have access to drinkable water even in the most isolated areas. Each Marine uses roughly 20 gallons a day, and the Puller delivers. The ship's ability to independently generate water, electricity, and intelligence gives it a level of self-sufficiency unmatched by traditional platforms. It can support humanitarian missions one week and covert special operations the next, all without needing to dock. In an Indo-Pacific conflict where fixed bases might be neutralized and ports closed, this independence is more than a convenience. It's a strategic advantage. The Puller is not just ready for war, it's designed to thrive when everything else around it fails. Before becoming the centerpiece of US Indo-Pacific strategy, the USS Lewis B Puller earned its stripes in the Persian Gulf. It served as a launch platform for SEAL teams, a logistics hub, and even an interception point for illicit weapons transfers. This wasn't just training, it was real-world action. One of its most notable operations occurred in December 2022, when the Puller intercepted a stateless fishing trawler in the Gulf of Oman. On board, over 50 tons of military equipment, including 7,000 rocket fuses, propellant for RPGs, and over 1 million AK-47 rounds. The mission prevented the material from reaching Yemen's Houthis and later redirected it to support Ukraine. The ship's seamless role in these missions proved it was more than theory. It was a fully operational, mission-ready powerhouse. With successful interdictions and support operations under its belt, the Puller showed that it could be the linchpin in multi-domain warfare, especially in unstable or contested waters. Naval assets lose value quickly if they need constant rotation or port access, but the Puller isn't built like that. Its unique crew rotation model, inherited from submarine operations, means it can stay deployed almost indefinitely, rotating blue and gold teams every 5 months. This system allows for operational continuity that few other vessels can match. While other ships return to port for maintenance, crew rest, or resupply, the Puller can remain in contested regions, reinforcing presence, projecting strength, and supporting missions without pause. And with over 100 personnel capacity just for mission-specific roles, on top of its standard crew, it can adjust its team depending on operational requirements. Need drone operators, special forces, engineers? The Puller adapts, keeping it relevant, flexible, and persistently lethal in extended engagements. When the USS Lewis B Puller enters a region, it's not just a military maneuver, it's a geopolitical signal. In places where US access is denied or where traditional bases face resistance, the Puller fills the vacuum with steel, sensors, and a clear message. We're here, whether you like it or not. In the Indo-Pacific, where China is swaying nations away from US alliances, the Puller is a floating reminder that America doesn't need permission to protect its interests. Its presence boosts morale among allies and serves as a check on aggressive maneuvers by adversaries. It's not all about conflict. The Puller can participate in joint drills, humanitarian operations, and disaster relief, all of which increase regional goodwill and diplomatic leverage. Its versatility ensures it's welcome in more places than a traditional warship, expanding US influence by design, not demand. The USS Puller is often labeled as a tactical support vessel, but its capabilities and flexibility elevate it into the realm of strategic assets. It enables US forces to remain forward deployed and combat ready without relying on foreign infrastructure, a rare feat in the vast Pacific. Its ability to support high-intensity missions while avoiding direct confrontation makes it ideal for the kind of gray zone conflicts that define modern Indo-Pacific tensions. Whether responding to Chinese coercion, conducting surveillance, or reinforcing allies, the Puller can be the tip of the spear or the steady hand behind it. In fact, its very existence shifts how wars are fought. No longer must naval strategies depend entirely on aircraft carriers or fragile land bases. With the Puller, US planners have a resilient mobile node they can count on in times of crisis. Strategically located and always operational. For China, the USS Lewis B Puller represents a nightmare scenario, an untrackable, unshakable, always present base that operates beyond political pressure or missile range. It can deliver, observe, command, and react, all without setting foot on land. Its ability to launch drone swarms, refuel fleets, and support special forces deep in contested waters undermines China's entire Indo-Pacific strategy. It neutralizes the advantage of proximity, disrupts coercive diplomacy, and keeps US forces in the fight long after conventional assets might falter. In a world where soft power is often checked by hard presence, the Puller is both the visible symbol of American resolve and the invisible engine of operational resilience. China doesn't just worry about it, they study it, track it, and try to build counters. Because deep down, they know if conflict ever comes, the Puller might be the ship that turns the tide.